It finally happened. Russell Wilson is gone. He's been traded by the Seattle Seahawks to the Denver Broncos almost immediately following the Aaron Rodgers news. Aaron Rodgers resigns with the Green Bay Packers to a long-term contract. Mr. Unlimited himself, Russell Wilson, had to steal the spotlight from Aaron Rodgers and get traded to the Denver Broncos. What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's Mitch back here with a NFL free agency update. In this video, I'm going to break down the trade. The Broncos, the Seahawks, Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos, and what that means for the NFL, what that means for the AFC West now, and what that means for the Seahawks' future as a franchise. Because if you trade a quarterback like Russell Wilson, it's going to completely change your plans for the future. But before I get started, guys, make sure that you do spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more BLV just like this. And also, spike that notification bell to be notified when I drop the latest NFL free agency reaction. You're going to want to do that all off season, as I'm going to be reacting to just about everything that goes on in the NFL. So if you want my opinion, then spike that notification bell. Also, get in that comments and let me know what you think of this blockbuster trade, because that's exactly what it is, a blockbuster trade. Russell Wilson to the Denver Broncos. Now, let's take a look at that trade. So, according to Ian Rappaport, the full deal is that the Denver Broncos get Russell Wilson and a 4th-round pick. The Seahawks, on the other hand, get 2 first-rounders. I assume it's for this year and next year, and 2 second-rounders. A 5th-rounder, Drew Lock, the quarterback, Shelby Harris, the defensive lineman, and Noah Fant, the tight end. Russell Wilson and a 4th-rounder for 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a 5th, Lock, Harris, and Fant. Now that is an absolute blockbuster. That is going to be fascinating to see who comes out as the winner. Now, who do I think is going to come out as the winner? Quite honestly, it's difficult to make a trade that is kind of even for both sides in this style. You know, it's a blockbuster for a big-time quarterback, so it's very difficult to make it even on both sides. I personally feel that if I had to pick, I think that the Seahawks got a ton of value for Russell Wilson, and I do believe that the Seahawks are kind of the winners of this trade in a way. But I do believe that the Broncos have needed a quarterback. They've wanted a quarterback. They understand their window. They understand the roster they have. Now, it's interesting that they went all in on a new coaching regime, like almost right off the bat. They've got Hackett, the new coach. They wanted to land Aaron Rodgers, but they've gone all in on Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson, I will say, is much cheaper than Aaron Rodgers probably would have been. From a trade perspective, it's probably fairly similar. I wouldn't even be surprised if the Broncos offered the exact same trade to the Seahawks that they did the Packers. But obviously, the Packers wanted to work something out with Aaron Rodgers, so that never really truly got through or started. And with Russell Wilson, there was no buzz. And that's what's kind of shocking about it. You know, we didn't hear anything about Russell Wilson this offseason. He was keeping his mouth shut. He wasn't saying anything. Pete Carroll wasn't saying anything. The front office wasn't saying anything. So I kind of felt like, okay, you know, Russ, I guess, is just going to end up back in Seattle. You know, nothing's really going to go down. Nothing's really going to happen. But when we look at this trade, I feel like I said, it's pretty even considering that the Broncos get their franchise quarterback that they've wanted since Peyton Manning. They haven't been able to nail a quarterback in the draft. They haven't been able to sign the right one in free agency. They haven't been able to find a trade for one of these guys. And they've had a pretty solid roster all throughout since losing Peyton Manning. They've had solid defenses. They've had solid rosters. It just hasn't been able to work because they haven't had a quarterback. So the Broncos have finally got fed up enough to throw all these assets at a team to get a guy like Russell Wilson. And what you're getting with Russell Wilson is a solidified stud. Some people may question Russell Wilson at this point in his career, having coming off a season where it wasn't his best football. There's no doubt about it. It wasn't his best, but he was 6-8 with that football team last year. That was a dreadful football team. And one of the things that I don't think people understand about Russell Wilson is that Russell Wilson has been carrying the Seattle Seahawks franchise for seasons. I'm talking years, okay? Now, Russell Wilson, when he was winning Super Bowls and going to Super Bowls, that was a great team. The Legion of Boom was there. They had Marshawn Lynch. They had some quality offensive lines, wide receivers. I felt like Pete Carroll was at his best as a coach. But man, these last, I want to say 5-6 years, ever since about 2015 and on, this has been Russell Wilson's team. Russell Wilson has been one of the best quarterbacks. I think at times you could say he was the second or third best quarterback at times, with the first being Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, kind of take your pick there. But Russell Wilson has been in that elite category for the last 5 to 6 years, maybe even longer than that, 7-8 years. And he's been a one-man wrecking crew, a one-man show, what he could do, scrambling around, making plays out of nothing, making plays out of thin air. His deep ball is extraordinary. I still believe that his arm is just as good as it was, back 5-6 years ago. It's still a very good arm, and I believe he has excellent downfield touch. Where Russell Wilson, this is going to be interesting about the Broncos, is how do they kind of formulate a offense around Russell Wilson? Because one of the complaints or one of the rumors about Russell Wilson is that a lot of coaches don't really want to deal with his style of play because he's very reliant on broken plays. He's very reliant on backyard football where he kind of floats around, runs around, escapes the sack, and finds Tyler Lockett down the field, finds DK Metcalf down the field. He floats it up there. It's a perfect, pretty ball. And when it works, it's unstoppable. We've seen stretches from Russell Wilson, especially at the beginning of seasons, where you can't stop the Seahawks because Russell Wilson's just making every single throw on the money, every single play. He's outside the pocket running around. He can scramble still, although he's not the runner he was when he was younger. But Wilson has become a smart player. He doesn't really turn the ball over very often. When he does, it's often forced from a ton of pressure when the Seahawks have had very bad offensive lines. Now, I don't think Denver has a very bad offensive line. I think it's about average, and they might use some of their assets to make sure that that offensive line is comfortable for Russell Wilson. But when you look at their offensive line across the board, really it's only, I want to say, the right tackle position that they could use some work at. Every other position's fairly solid. Center, possibly as well. But the guard positions, left tackle with Bowles, that's perfect. And Russell Wilson has really thrived the most when his left tackle position is solidified. The last couple of years, Dwayne Brown has helped them exponentially. In the past, Russell Okung and players like that have held that down for Russell Wilson. And when his offensive line's been good and when he has time to work and operate, that's when you get the best Russ, because the longer he can sit in the pocket and make plays and shift in the pocket and do that slight little movement left to right, up and down in the pocket and escape the pocket, it's just so hard for a defense to defend because they're having to deal with him for so long on a play that eventually he's going to make a play. Eventually he's going to make a throw. Eventually he's going to break down a defense. So I think the Broncos are definitely going to find a nice rhythm with their offense. I could see Russell Wilson fitting into a Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packer type offense where it's a lot of Russ, deep ball down the field, off of play action, probably a slower paced offense, kind of the same way that it was with the Packers, and trying to find those bombs, but then also operating some easy throws for Russell Wilson that he has never really had in his career. Russell Wilson has often operated a boomer bust passing offense. Not a lot of it has been in rhythm, and that's where I'd like to see Hackett take Wilson's game to the next level, and it's not really Wilson's fault. It's more so the offense. It's more so the team that he's been on. They have never been able to put a structure around him where there's easy, quick throws for Russell Wilson that are designed for him to make easy throws. These RPOs and things of that nature that I don't think have been fully taken advantage of in Seattle, you could see taken to the next level in Denver with Hackett coming from a place like Green Bay where they produced the most yards after catch in the NFL. They produced, very easy passes a lot of the times for Aaron Rodgers to get in rhythm. And then when Rodgers needed to make a throw, just as Wilson can, he'll be able to do so in this system. I do think Javonte Williams as a running back is going to thrive off of Russell Wilson as well. And you could see him be the hammer of this offense, and then Wilson working off of that, finding guys like Sutton down the field, Jerry Jeudy over the middle of the field. This is a dynamic offense, even if you lose Noah Fant to the Seahawks. Defensively, I do think the Broncos need to do some work, and I've talked about that in my free agency plan in depth, so if you want to check that out, make sure that you do, and also I have my free agency predictions to predict who will land in Denver. But I think offensively, the Broncos are going to take huge strides forward just because of his playmaking ability that he offers. And then on top of that, Hackett's system is going to allow Wilson throws that have never been accessible to him. Those easy completions that I think is so big to kind of build that baseline for an offense and for a quarterback. Now, from the Seattle Seahawks perspective, the first question is who is going to be their quarterback in 2022? And the first thought would be Drew Lock, right? The first thought would be Drew Lock because as a part of the trade, as you can see once again, they have acquired Drew Lock. Now, they've also acquired Noah Fant. So Noah Fant would kind of spell the end for Gerald Everett in Seattle, I would assume. I don't think you're going to see Gerald Everett in Seattle this year. I think Noah Fant will be their full-on, locked and loaded number one tight end. The Seahawks have been searching for an athletic tight end that can do a little bit of everything, and Noah Fant is going to be a very nice number 3 option to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And I don't think Drew Lock for 1 year is a terrible solution for Seattle. It feels like Seattle, with all the salary cap space and all the money that they have this offseason, I think they're in the top 5 in that regard. I'm not sure how Russell Wilson's money impacts that. But then on top of that, they're going to have a ton of picks to replenish the youth of this roster. And it's going to be interesting to see if Pete Carroll is a part of that solution or if they find a new regime to take over. Obviously, the front office, having made this move, has bought themselves some extra time. But with Pete Carroll being a little bit older, do you think that Pete Carroll maybe is there for a year or two and then passes the baton to the next guy? Because it feels like Pete Carroll, how long is he going to be able to coach? He's not going to be coaching until he's 80, right? I don't think so. But he's still, young. He's still got that vibe to him where it feels like he doesn't have to go if you don't want him to go. It's just like I've always kind of felt like part of the reason this didn't work is because Pete Carroll and his rigidness and his old school mentality and not letting Russ cook. So I do wonder if Pete Carroll is going to be a part of this solution. But 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. You get a tight end in Noah Fant who's going to be right away a very nice player for you in all facets of the game. He's excellent after the catch. He's very fast and athletic. He's a solid blocker. So he's going to fit what Seattle has been looking for. Shelby Harris is a very good football player. I'm not sure how he factors into the future in Seattle, but he is a good pass rusher. He's a good run defender. The only thing I'll say about Shelby Harris is he is more of a rotation style player. He's most effective in rotation. He's not an every down player. He never really has been an every down player. So it's going to be interesting to see how Seattle uses him. But for a team that's needed just a boost up front, Shelby Harris is certainly going to provide that, and he might already be their most talented player on that defensive line. And with him and Poona Ford in the middle of that defense, it's going to be very tough to run on that team. And I feel like Harris is going to provide an immediate impact this year to make this defense a better defense. Pete Carroll is a defensive coach, so that's what he's looking for. They need to work on the back end for sure, and as I said with the Broncos, you could check out my free agency plan. Still a lot of that applies here. But I feel like the Seahawks are going to need to work over the next 2 to 3 years to establishing their new regime and finding pieces that can work. I do believe that they're eventually going to land a quarterback in the draft. I'm not sure if that's going to be this year or next year, but I would be patient with it. I don't think you need to be competitive this year. When you look at your division, you've got the Rams, you've got the Cardinals, you've got the 49ers. All 3 teams are better than you at this moment. I almost feel like Seattle should go with the approach of taking it slow, acquiring younger talents in free agency, pay some money for the guys that you think are going to help and fit your scheme, but not necessarily hitting the panic button, not necessarily going full steam ahead on this, just right away trying to acquire all this new talent. It's going to take some time to find a quarterback. They could go with the rookie quarterback solution and find a guy in the first round if they like one, but it's going to be tough because this quarterback draft is very tricky and it's not super, anticipated. So I do think it might take a year for Seattle to find their next quarterback, or 2 years or 3 years. And I'm never going to say he's going to be Russell Wilson. That's going to be the tough thing. And that's the tough thing about evaluating a trade like this. One, all these draft picks are really going to determine who wins this trade. Really, for me, the winner of this trade comes down to who do the Seahawks pick. Because if they hit a home run on every single one of their picks, which is highly unlikely, by the way, then they'll win the trade. No doubt about it. But if they miss on 3 of them and hit on 1 of them, but it's the quarterback, okay, maybe they still kind of win the trade, but if it's 2-2 and they don't find a quarterback and the quarterback becomes the Broncos situation where they never find a next Russell Wilson, then obviously Denver wins. If Denver goes to the Super Bowl and they win, then they win, they win the trade. If they even have a competitive team for the next 3-4 years, then they probably win the trade. And Seattle's still struggling to find their quarterback. So it really comes down to Seattle's ability to find their next quarterback. Seattle had a lot of confidence in being able to rebuild a team. And we've seen Seattle have their most success with a quarterback on a rookie contract. That guy happened to be Russell Wilson. So we'll see how Seattle is equipped of doing so now, about 10 years later, which is going to be very, very interesting. They've gone through 10 years with Russell Wilson. Now they're trying to find the next Russell Wilson and trying to rebuild the same roster that they had about a decade ago, which this is just so many fascinating elements. On top of that, the AFC West is going to be very, very competitive. It's the quarterback division. You've got Mahomes, you've got Herbert, you've got Russ now, and Derek Carr is still really darn good. And I do wonder how this impacts the Raiders possibly opening up discussions to trade Derek Carr, because now, you have the 4th best quarterback in this division, and it doesn't really feel like the Raiders are going to be super competitive. So does McDaniels and company look to trade Derek Carr? That's a totally another discussion for another day. There's so much to break down here. I love the fit with Russ in Denver, though, and I am very fascinated to see what Seattle does. I think Seattle got great value for Russell Wilson. They've got some solid players. Fant and Shelby Harris are solid, good players. And then on top of that, man, they get some picks to replenish this team. So it's a win-win for both sides. I'm going to be really interested to see what the Broncos do to help Wilson throughout free agency. I think they need to certainly work on their secondary, their defense, find a pass rusher. Maybe Von Miller comes back. This is very more likely now. And then offensively, you could certainly look to hit right tackle, possibly center. Tight end is going to be something interesting. But I'm excited for Broncos fans, and I'm also excited for the future of the Seattle Seahawks. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. That's my thoughts. Those are my opinions on this trade. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to spike that like button, and we'll see you in the next NFL free agency reaction. We're just getting started for 2022 NFL free agency. It's Mitch. We'll see how Wilson develops in Denver. Peace.